Every sword collector, martial artist, and history fan will tell you the katana is the sharpest, most perfect sword ever made. They're wrong. The katana wasn't born from perfection, it was born from desperation. Japan had some of the worst iron ore on the planet, and what Japanese swordsmiths did to overcome that problem accidentally created the most sophisticated blade-making process in human history. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to find out why everything you thought you knew about the katana is only half the story. We're going deeper than the sharpness, deeper than the movies. We're talking metallurgy, psychology, social power, and why this single blade changed Japanese civilization, not just warfare. Let's get into it. Here's what nobody tells you about the katana. Japan is an island nation, and island nations don't always have access to the raw materials that continental empires take for granted. Japan's iron ore, called satisu, or iron sand, was low quality, inconsistent, and full of impurities. By European or Chinese standards, it was nearly useless for making weapons. But here's what most people don't know. That weakness became the katana's greatest strength. Japanese swordsmiths developed a steel called tamahagin, which translates roughly to jewel steel. The process took 3 days and 3 nights of continuous smelting. A single bloom could weigh up to 40 kilograms. But here's the critical part. Only about 25% of that bloom was high enough quality to forge into a sword. That brutal selection process forced Japanese smiths to become the most precise metallurgists in the pre-industrial world. They learned to read the steel, to identify carbon content by color and spark. By the 1300s, Japanese smiths understood carbon distribution in steel on a practical level that European metallurgists wouldn't theorize about for another 400 years. And that mastery gave birth to a technique that nobody else on Earth had cracked: differential hardening. This is where it gets genuinely fascinating. The katana's edge and its spine are made of 2 fundamentally different types of steel, fused into one blade. Here's how it works. The smith coats the blade's spine with thick clay. The edge gets a much thinner coat sometimes, none at all. The entire sword goes into the furnace at around 750 to 800 degrees Celsius. Then the critical moment, it gets plunged into water. The edge cools almost instantly. This locks the steel into a structure called martensite, extraordinarily hard, capable of holding an edge so fine it can shave hair. The spine cools slowly. It forms pearlite, flexible, shock-absorbing, resistant to breaking. One blade, 2 completely different steel structures. That's not just smart engineering, that's genius. But here's the hidden advantage nobody talks about. That quenching process also causes the blade to curve. The hard edge contracts faster than the soft spine. That difference in cooling speed physically bends the steel. The katana's iconic curve isn't a stylistic choice. It's a physical fingerprint of the hardening process itself. And that curve changed everything about how the sword was used. Most people think the katana's advantage is in the fight. It's actually in the moment before the fight. Japanese swordsmanship developed an entire martial art around one movement: yokutsu, the art of drawing and cutting in a single fluid motion. A skilled practitioner could have their blade out and a cut completed before a standing opponent could even react. Here's what makes that possible. The katana is worn edge up, tucked into the belt. When you draw it, the natural arc of the draw follows the curve of the blade. The edge exits the saya, already angled for a horizontal cut. Your draw and your strike are one motion. Compare that to a straight sword. A straight blade needs a separate setup movement before it's in a cutting position. That extra half second. That's the difference between life and death. A samurai named Hayashizaki Jinsuke Shigenobu, who lived from roughly 1542 to 1621, is credited with systematizing this technique. He reportedly fought and won over 200 duels. Most of his victories were decided in the first second of engagement. The katana wasn't designed to win long fights. It was designed to end fights before they started. But here's something even hardcore. History fans often overlook. The katana's greatest power in Japanese history had nothing to do with combat. By the 1600s, Japan had entered the Edo period under the Tokugawa shogunate. The country was unified. Large-scale war was rare. A samurai might go their entire career without drawing their sword in battle. So why did the katana become more important than ever? In 1588, Toyotomi Hideyoshi issued the Sword Hunt Edict. The katanagari farmers, monks, and merchants had their weapons confiscated. Only the samurai class retained the right to carry swords. The Tokugawa government then went further. The daisho, the paired katana and wakizashi, became legally restricted to samurai only. Wearing 2 swords in public was a declaration of rank, identity, and legal status. The katana became a social ID card. Merchants and farmers, who even touched a samurai's sword without permission, could legally be executed on the spot. A practice called kiritsuke, the right of sword trial. What nobody tells you is this: the katana spent more of its history as a symbol of power than as a killing tool. Its psychological weight in Japanese society dwarfed its military use. Now let's talk about what the movies got catastrophically wrong. Hollywood katanas cut through armor. They clash dramatically against other swords. They're basically indestructible. The reality, almost the complete opposite. The katana was designed specifically for unarmored or lightly armored opponents. Its hardened edge, the same feature that makes it razor sharp, is also brittle under heavy lateral stress. A hard clash against a European longsword or a thick breastplate could chip or crack that edge. Real samurai on heavily armored battlefields, like at the Battle of Nagashino in 1575, used spears and firearms as primary weapons. The sword came out when formations broke and combat got close. And real duels, terrifyingly short. Historical accounts describe most engagements ending in seconds, not minutes. The famous duel between Miyamoto Musashi and Sasaki Kojiro at Gunrujima Island in 1612 was considered extraordinary precisely because Musashi made Kojiro wait. The psychological tension was the actual weapon. The katana in real history was a precision instrument for precise situations, not a universal death machine. Today, there are approximately 300 licensed swordsmiths in Japan. The Japanese government actually limits production. Each master smith can legally make no more than 24 swords per year. Why so few? Because the traditional process hasn't changed in over 700 years. A single katana takes between 2 weeks and 3 months to complete. The tamahagane is still smelted from iron sand in a clay furnace called a tatara. The differential hardening is still done by hand. The smith still reads the color of the glowing steel with their eyes to judge temperature. Master smiths like Asen Sodatoshi, a living national treasure designated by the Japanese government, produce blades using techniques documented in manuscripts from the Kamakura period, the 1200s. These aren't antiques. They're the continuation of an unbroken chain of knowledge stretching back nearly 1,000 years in a top-tier traditional katana today. Anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000. Some master-crafted blades with provable lineage have sold at auction for over $1 million. The katana isn't just history. It's a living tradition. So here's where we land. The katana wasn't born from the best materials. It was forged from the worst, and that forced Japanese craftsmen to innovate in ways that produced something genuinely extraordinary. A weapon that was part engineering marvel, part social statement, part psychological tool, and only partly a battlefield weapon. The movies gave you the myth. Now you have the reality. So I want to know, what surprised you most about the katana, the metallurgy, the social power, or the fact that real samurai duels lasted about 3 seconds? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more deep dives into history's greatest weapons, the real stories, not the Hollywood versions, hit subscribe. We've got a lot more coming. I'll see you in the next one.